Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we continue on our 5-part series with part 3 looking at the legendary Rider heroes. Available in one of my favorite games, Doomsday Last Survivor. It's a mobile/PC RTS game, real-time strategy, where your entire focus is to survive the zombie apocalypse, build up the best troops that you can, and obviously take them into war. Now, like I mentioned today, we are going to be taking a look at our Rider heroes. Funny enough, as of today, we have just started a new Top Commander event where they have the new Rider heroes added to them. We now have Chasey, and now in the Lucky Roulette, we also will find... Let me just pull it up here. The Lucky Roulette will also find Felix. Now, both Chasey and Felix are brand new to the game, and truth be told, I'm not really sure how they're going to fit into it yet because they have a bit of a different prospect or a bit of a different meta, if you will, into what they're trying to accomplish. Most of our meta right now, most of what the game is revolves around, has a lot to do with your damage skills, your skill damage. And yet, Felix and Chasey, as we will see, focus on their auto attack. So it looks to me like they're trying to balance the meta out a little bit, since we do have right now such an overbearing amount of skill damage that we're trying to deal with. So it looks like Felix and Chasey are trying to bring in a new type of meta, or a new type of gameplay, where the focus is no longer on damage skills, but based on continuous basic attack damage instead. Now, like I mentioned, we will take a look at those. And in regards to the rankings, I know in the previous 2 videos, we've shown them off as they have been ranked. But because Felix and Chasey are both brand new, I will go over them first so we can take a look at them. And then we will rank the remaining 7 heroes that the Riders have completed. So let's start first and foremost, like I mentioned, with the 2 new heroes. Let's take a look at Felix first. Now, Felix, I was lucky enough to manage to pick up in the Lucky Roulette, so I have him added to my collection. I haven't obviously done anything with him yet, but that will come in time. Just realize that I do have him. Ha ha ha. That being said, now, again, I'm going to put this out there, guys. I apologize if I sound a little raspy. I am just getting over being sick, and of course, the first things to go in those situations is typically the voice. That being said, let's take a look at Felix. Take a look at what he does. Let's take a look at what he does well, and obviously where we would be able to play him with which heroes he would mesh well with. Okay. So first and foremost, Felix is a Rider leader. He also has the skills talent tree, as we'll see here, the general, the Rider, and the skills talent tree. Most of which you're going to put all of your effort into the skills talent tree and then the rest into Riders, almost ignoring the general side of things. But that's typical with most heroes that have the skills plus the specific talent tree themselves. You're going to put most into skills for the damage or the triggering of that rage skill, and then the rest into the Rider squad to help boost those troops as well. Now, if we look at Felix, obviously, like I mentioned, he's going to do really well in the offensive role and really well in field battle. So you'll probably have him running around in battling in the field. And as we've gone and looked through his talents and his talent tree, let's take a look at his skills. So his first skill is Accelerate and Overtake. It's a 1,000 based rage requirement, which is perfect for most heroes have a 1,000 rage requirement, except for Chun, like we mentioned in the last video. But if we look at his skill, it's a little bit differently. Most rage skills are going to trigger and deal bonus damage when the trigger skill, or when the skill triggers, In this situation, your basic attack damages, or your basic attacks deal bonus damage up to a factor of 3,100 for the next 5 seconds. So you can equate and think about your basic attacks hitting every second. So what this basically means is at max level, you're going to be doing 3,100 5 times on top of the basic attack damage that he'll already have. So that's basically an additional 15,500 damage over those basic attack time frames. Each basic attack will also reduce enemy skill damage by 3%. So not only is he dealing more of is he trying to change the meta by removing the skill damage, which is what a lot of heroes are prone to, but he's also going to be empowering his own basic attacks to try to switch that meta a little bit more. So he's going to be hitting more basic attack style and countering the skill damage that comes out of it. Next, we've got a rider squad travel speed increased by up to 18% at max level and reduces counter damage by 44%. That's a huge debuff, so that's a good one to be looking at as well. And having a rider squad buff obviously makes him faster in the field, hence why he's going to be good, helping in those field battles, fighting in those field battles, and being very specific. Now, this does mean, however, he is more of a single target hero because your basic attacks are not AoE, they're not area of effect. But that will pair well with some of the other heroes that are single target heroes as well. Okay. Next, we're looking at Champion Declaration. This is a passive skill. Basic attacks have a 20% chance to increase all damage dealt to oneself by 0.06% for 10 seconds. So basically, you're going to get a max at 1.8% up to 18%. And this is a flat damage dealt. This isn't an attack up or a defense up. This is a flat damage, which is perfect. These damage dealt buffs are always better. Flat damage buffs are always better because they work exponentially versus laterally. Okay. So, basic chance. So you have a 20% chance to increase your might. So basically, once every 5 seconds, you're going to trigger this ability, which is going to last for 10 seconds. So you're going to stack it up fairly quickly. And if you're increasing your damage by 18%, that means your basic attack damage is more. Your skill for your co-leader, their skill damage will do more. It basically increases a decent, and 18% is a nice chunk. Okay. Next, we've got Pit Stop. It's a passive skill, increases the rider squad attack by up to 32% at full level. And when taking skill damage, increases own squad attack by an additional 16%. So you're basically increasing your attack speed, or your squad attack by a total of up to 50%, which is pretty darn good for a squad attack buff. But it is still a squad attack, so it's not nearly as influential as a damage buff. But again, 15% is, or 50%, pardon me, at max level is really, really good. Or 48, sorry, I can't math. The math ain't mathin'. But 48% is still a really good squad attack buff. Now, when he gets awakened, he performs an additional basic attack every 10 seconds. They grant an additional 70 rage and do not trigger counterattacks from the enemy. So he gets a free punch every 10 seconds, which grants him additional rage, which doesn't trigger more damage from the enemy. That's a really decent awakened skill. And to think that's not a change on one of these ones, this is just another flat bonus passive skill. So he's going to have really good rage regeneration, which is going to trigger his skills more often. And if you pair him with someone like Bella, for example, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can see how that rage regeneration will really pump out some decent damage. Makes them faster, reduces some of that damage, increases some of that damage, up to that, and then increases attack. So he's got some really good utility, which is why we're obviously talking about him in the top, him and Chasey. But this is also why I think he's going to be, him and Chasey are going to be kind of pinnacle in changing the meta over from massive skill damage to more of a balance between skill damage and basic attack damage, right? So keep an eye on that, in that change happening here as well. But who can you pair him with in the battle, in the field battles, pardon me? Truth is, he can pair with a lot of good choices. Obviously, if you pair him with Chase, who is also a basic attack hero, you'll see some massive damage to or massive influx to your basic attack damage, which can make them very viable there as well. And Chasey's the hero we'll talk about next. She's got a ton of utility, so that makes sense to be able to pair them together. You could also pair him, Felix, pardon me, you could pair him really well with Bella out in the field, because Bella is also a very strong rider who does a ridiculous amount of rage skill damage. So pairing them together with their damage skills, it basically creates for a really, really powerful line. Or if you don't have Chase or Bella, you can always pair him with someone like Cynthia. Cynthia's one of the basic starter heroes that we've always had. And once you get awakened, has a pretty decent rage generation as well. And she's quicker in the field. So there's some reasons what makes her a good co-leader. Not necessarily a leader, which we'll talk about here when we go over her. But if you don't have Chase or Bella or something like that, having Cynthia as a co-lead is actually a pretty good okay. It's an okay second place or an okay choice, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have the collection of heroes yet. Okay. Next, let's talk about Chasey. Chasey is another brand new hero. I do not have her. She's only available currently as you rank in Top Commander. And as my account is an infantry main, I probably won't acquire her until I at least acquire the rest of the infantry heroes. So, but we can still talk about her anyways. We're still going to talk about her skills. We'll talk about her talents. As you can see, she's still a rider squad and a skills main. So you're going to be doing all of her skill talent and then part into her rider tree. Yes, she has the garrison feat, but this just gives you an idea that she works really well in the garrison in the garrison line. Now, like I mentioned, she has a ton of utility. You can use her in the field because if you look at her abilities, she has most of her abilities are there regardless of whether she's garrisoning or not. And then if she's garrisoned, she'll get bonus stuff, right? So if you look at this one, for example, her rage skill every 1,000 increases the basic attack damage by up to 290% for 5 seconds. And if you're garrisoned during this time, reduces skill damage by range squads by an additional, or by a total of 17%, 17.5. So you can see that even in the field, if you pair her with someone like Felix, who's going to be pumping out more basic attacks more often, increasing the damage of those basic attacks by 290% can be very, very potent, especially for those times that you're triggering, right? Yes, she gets the bonus if garrisoned during this time. You can reduce skill damage from range squads by 17.5%, which in my opinion is a direct shot against the current meta. This is why I believe that these two are kind of here to kind of change it a little bit, because most range squads right now do a ton of skill damage. And so this is basically a direct punch to their face. So like we went over last week, you've got Lewis, you've got Lynn, you've got Bard, you've got Julia, who's just astronomically amazing. And they all do a ridiculous amount of skill damage. Well, having someone like this garrisoned to defend against that is kind of exactly what they kind of needed. Next, we've got Lost in the Moonlight. It's a passive skill. Increases rider squad HP by up to 30% at max level. Reduces skill damage taken by 7.5% against squads with a remaining squad size greater than 50%. So let's break this down. This means that you're going to increase your HP by 30% at max levels for your rider squads. And it reduces the skill damage taken by... Oh, so basically the stronger, which is exactly perfect. So and this is kind of how skills work. The more troops that you have, the more damage those skills work, or the skills do. So if you're going to reduce the damage taken by 7.5% against squads that do more damage, that's kind of where it's perfect. Now I can see why they got rid of that after, because it ends up being too good once you have reduction of skill damage and then the negative effects of having less HP in your squads as well. So they had to get rid of that as well. But that's still a decent passive skill, hence why she's going to have a lot of utility. You can still use her in the field, right? Next, we've got Lashing Whip, another passive skill, increasing basic attack damage by up to 46%. And if inflicted with silence, has a 50% chance to deal 2 basic attacks per turn for the duration of the effect. These basic attacks also grant 20 rage. So here we see... she's increasing the basic attack damage by 14%, or by 46% here. She's increasing her basic attack damage by 290% here, so that's going to stack. And she's going to regenerate more rage for the entire duration of this of the silence, right? Which we already know can be anywhere from 3 seconds for Julia's ability, right? So if we look at Julia real quick. We've got Julia, her awakened skill silences for 3 seconds. So that's an extra 3 basic attacks with massively increased basic attack damage. And then you have Chun, who has that, where is it here? Right, when taking skill damage, restores there's a 10% chance to inflict silence on the attacker for 3 seconds. So you also have that 3-second one there as well. So in any of the times that those silences can trigger, having Chasey there makes it beneficial, which is exactly why I also think Chasey's kind of a direct punch and a response to Julia as it is. This is why Julia is so good in the field right now. She's got the silence. She puts out a ton of damage. And she has a decent rage regeneration. So it's kind of what the meta calls for right now. This is why I think that the meta is changing a little bit. Now, we've gone through the talent tree and we're working on the skills. If you look at the next one here, we've got Wits and Eloquence, which is another passive skill, increasing rider squad attack by up to 32% when garrisoned. So that's only when garrisoned. So during this period, while garrisoned, basic attacks have also a 10% chance to deal an additional 1,800 up to 3 units in a fan-shaped area. So basically when she's getting, this is why she's got utility. She can be used out in the field, but she does do really well, especially against the Julia Lewis Julia Lewis rallies. She's going to really help, obviously, add more damage. It's kind of like a damage skill that keeps triggering once every 6 seconds. I mean, once every 10 seconds that lasts for 6 seconds. So you can expect it triggering once every 10 seconds or so, which is a nice little bonus, especially since she's already doing more damage here. And then lastly, a new skill, Shadow Stalker, again, a passive skill, increases basic attack damage dealt to target squad by 35% when its remaining squad size is less than 50%. So now she's got this one here where she's going to start reducing skill damage taken by up to 7.5% when they're above 50. And then once they're below 50, she starts smashing a lot harder and a lot faster. Not faster, but harder. So you can start to see why Felix and Chasey are going to be looking more towards changing the dynamic of the game. And they're going to probably take some balancing and some tweaking to make, to fit well within the rankings. But I expect them to shine in the current situation where we have, like I said, very, very strong ranged rallies that end up doing a lot of damage very quickly. Now, remember though, the best part about ranged rallies is that they're also weaker. Right, so they put out more damage, but they end up taking more damage. That's just their base stats. So it becomes a war of attrition, kind of like a race. And this is why Chasey and Felix are kind of like, and I keep going back to it, but this is why I think the meta is changing. However, those are the first two. Those are brand new rider heroes. We spent a little bit of extra time on them, so we have a little bit of a better understanding what we're looking for moving forward. But now let's go over the 7 remaining rider heroes that we have left that we know and love. And I'll give you their rankings as I show them off as well, okay? So in my opinion, and remember these are all my opinions, okay? If you base it against the strategy guides themselves, there might be some differencing, again, opinions. But according to the players that I've spoken to and according to my own experiences, this is how I would rank them. Go ahead and argue in the comments if you'd like, or try to school me in the comments as well. I like to learn as well. Okay, so first and foremost, I think the top rider leader right now, the top rider hero, is Bella. She is arguably one of the hardest hitting heroes in the game. You'll see very quickly she has the capabilities of being very fast. She hits very hard. She is a high damaging single target hero. But when you're running riders in the field, that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're either hunting farmers, you're hit and run, right? So you're punching and then running away and punching and running away and trying to be strategic with that, which Bella does really, really well. Okay. If we look first at her talents, obviously I'm running the skills the same way. I fill out that skills the entire way, but because I'm not a huge fan of the double-edged sword, I'm not a fan of them dealing more damage, but also taking them more damage. I would rather put that into the rider squad here, and go ahead and boost their stats there. Okay. So when we look at the talents, again, she's got talent. She's got the skills and the riders. Fill out the skills, put the rest into rider. If we look at her skills, you'll start to see why she's so good. Her first one, for example, again, 1,000 only 1,000 rage, so it triggers fairly often. Deals direct damage to one squad for 12,000 and has a 50% chance to increase the enemy's damage taken by 15% for 3 seconds. Pardon me. So not only is she punching in the face, with her rage squad for 12,000, which is decent, but she's also increasing the damage dealt. So if you're, for example, running with rallies, or if you're running with multiple fighters, this is going to now benefit your other marches as well, so that they'll be able to hit for those 3 seconds for an additional 15%. And that's a flat 15% damage increase, not an attack increase. Okay. Next, we've got Wild Rampage. This is a passive skill. When not in battle, Rider Squad travel speed increases by 30%. Like I said, she's really quick. She gains 150 rage when entering battle, but travel speed will be reduced by 10 seconds or by 10% for 3 seconds when taking skill damage. So this is kind of the trade-off. She's much faster when she's outside of battle. When she jumps into battle, she jumps in punching hard, so she's going to have those skills coming out more quickly. However, the trade-off is that if you do get skill damage, if you do get hit with a skill, her movement speed drops a little bit. So if you're, for example, trying to run away from 3 or 4 people, it makes it kind of hard, simply because typically those 3 or 4 are going to bring down that reduced speed, or increase the reduced speed. Let me reword that. It will bring down your travel speed enough that you will have a tough time getting away. Okay? So she's definitely, one of those kind of characters you have to be a little cautious of. But of course, when you're not in battle, she gets that flat 30%. It's a really nice bonus. Next, we've got Piercing Fangs. Increase Rider Squad attack by 30% and deals 12% or 24% more damage to squads with shield effect. So she's going to increase the attack by 30%, which is higher than what we have with a lot of other heroes. 30 is pretty okay. And then she deals an additional 24% to squads with shield effect. And shield effect is pretty good. It's pretty, especially with some of the top heroes, it's out there. If you look at Bianca, for example, Bianca's got a heal, or a shield, pardon me. If you look at someone like Raigero's got a shield, right? So the shield ability is out and around. It's on several different heroes. So having that bonus damage for Bella, especially when she's running into those defensive squads, makes it a good rally leader. Okay. Next, we've got Savage Hunt. This is one of the things that makes her so good. When leading only rider squads, damages increases by 15%. So again, a nice damage buff. Increased by 15%, and then increases an additional up to 12% when the remaining squad is less than 30%. So basically, she ends up dealing and eliminating people off the map a lot quicker, which is one of the reasons why she's so good. Remember, in war, a lot of times the make or break of a fight can come down to who has more, not necessarily troops, but marches. So even in fights, one of the things you want to look at is focusing on the weakest marches and sending them home one at a time. And Bella does that really well, because as the fight goes on, right, not only is she hitting individual targets for a lot, but she's helping the rest of the war by allowing the rest to do more damage. And then she comes in here and punches way harder as these flat bonus damage. I mean, think about it, 27 bonus % damage when that squad is less than 30%. So she's going to end those matches much, much quicker when your enemies are getting, trailing lower in HP. And then finally, she gets a buff here. So instead of going from a 50% chance, it's a guaranteed increase by 20%, and that damage goes up to 13,000. So she's triggering often. She's got that rage regeneration when she jumps into battle. 150 is a darn good amount. So she's putting her first skill out faster. She's a high single target. She's got a decent amount of movement speed out in the field. And then she has this a ton of increasing flat damage skills. And that's honestly why she does so well. The damage buffs almost always trump attack buffs, because again, they're typically based exponentially and not linearly, the way that the calculations are done. Okay? So that's Bella. What can you use her for? Literally everything. I use her in field battle all the time. You can use her to lead rallies against, like, lead counter rallies. You can use her to lead sieges. She's really, really kind of useful all over the place, okay? Who would you pair her with? Well, if you're out in the field by yourself and you want to add a little movement speed, you could put someone like Cynthia or Mai. If you want, if you're out there doing fights with multiple people and it's a war, you might pair her with someone like Elena. If you're sieging the enemy towers, watchtowers, or buildings, you might want to pair her with someone like Sven. So there's lots of utility with what she can do, but there's also a reason why she's probably the top, at least in my opinion, the top ranked rider squad leader currently in the game, outside of the first two, but they're different. They don't count. So that's the first one. Next one we're going to talk about is the cutie patootie, Elena. Elena's fantastic. She's got great utility, which means she can be used in a lot of different places. She does really great in the field. She can be decently used in garrison as well. Like there's lots of different places that you can use her. Ideally, obviously, you're going to use her in the field because a lot of her skills will play off to fighting multiple targets or fighting with multiple marches. Again, she's very quick. She's on that horse, so she's really fast. So she's got lots of mobility. And she's just got a lot of different tools that you can use her for. Again, she comes complete with the skills and the rider squad talent tree. So if we look at that, go figure, I've pretty much done the exact same thing, filled out the full skills tree, and then going to be working into the rider squad from here. Not a fan of double-edged swords, so I don't do it. If you are, feel free. That's why this game is able to be customized as much as it is. Have some fun. But let's take a look at her skills. Because her skills are a little bit different, and you'll start to see why. Because she's one of these cool ones that kind of wants to fight in big team fights. She wants to have at least one other march with her. You know, she wants to be maybe counter rallying a rally, things like that. Because she gets bonus damage and she gets bonus abilities if the target she's attacking is flanked by another march. Okay, so let's take a look. 1,000 rage skill for Enforced Justice. She deals damage to target every second for 3 seconds for a total of 5,400 damage at max rank. If the target is flanked, the damage received by the target will be increased to 5,950. So if we do the math on this, deals damage for 3 seconds at almost 6,000, that by itself is close to 18,000 damage. It's 17,850 damage, which makes her one of the hardest hitting heroes in the game. Now, this doesn't take into account defenses, right? Those can change. But if you take that, I mean, that's a ton of damage. She's got one of the highest hitting ones that comes out there, and it's only 1,000. Okay? Next, we've got Tactical Rollover, a passive skill. When receiving AoE damage, there is a 90% chance of reducing damage received by 40%. That is a huge buff. Okay, so when receiving AoE damage, and remember, a ton of heroes, their rage skills are AoE damage based. But this isn't just rage skills. This could also equate for Chasey's AoE damage on her other skill. If we look at Chasey, remember, we just went over her earlier. She has, where is it here? This one here, this damage factor, right? During this period, basic attacks have a 10% chance to deal up in a fan-shaped area. So her basic attack becomes AoE for this special ability. And if you think about it, Elena, right? Reducing that. So if you're fighting riders against rider, there's capabilities of being able to counter some of those benefits as well. And a reduction of skill damage at 40%, like, that's huge, because that's effectively removing almost half of the worry that you have of being able to fight in the field. And if you're fighting ranged, for example, which is what riders counter, right? Riders counter ranged. Your biggest fear is the amount of skill damage that you're taking in the field. So having that flat 40% skill reduction at 90% triggering makes her super tanky in the field, fighting specifically against those rider or range squads, pardon me. Okay. Next, we've got her increasing defense. Look at this. Increase rider squad defense by 30% and increases damage dealt to flank targets by 13.5%. So not only is she now increasing the damage wanting to be around flank targets, right? So again, she could be co-leading a counter rally against a rally that's targeting your tower, and that rally is going to be flanked by 2 targets. She could be running in garrison if you wanted, doing the same thing, co-leading in a garrison lead against them if you wanted. And she would do okay. Is she the best at garrison? No. But again, she has utility. She has the capability of being put into those positions, which is part of the reason why I find that she's so good. Again, don't get it twisted, guys. These are my opinions only, okay? I can be wrong. Others will feel differently. That's totally fine. These are my opinions, the way that I feel that the game is. Next, we've got High Noon, a passive skill increasing basic attack damage by 30% when rage is above 50%. Basic attack damage increases to 53%. So when you're building your rage, right, as you're basic attacking and building your rage, you get that increased damage up to 53% on your basic attack damage. So you can start to see how she's, she's one of the newer riders as well. She's the start of this counter skills, increased basic attack damage type heroes. And she does really good at it. Okay? So the reason why, like I said, that's why she's up where she is. She does a good amount of damage. She's got a very hard-hitting ability. She's got utility, wanting to be in a lot of different places. She provides damage reduction. She provides defense, which riders unfortunately need. A decent amount of damage increase. And then when she's awakened, she provides Mounted Law, another flat passive skill providing a rider squad attack increased by a flat 20% and travel speed increased by a flat 20%. So you pair her, for example, with someone like Bella in the field who has that 30% movement speed when not in battle, right? 30% movement speed. That's a 50% movement speed when not in battle. You're not being caught by anybody. You see what I'm saying? Like she adds a ton of mobility to those lines. So you could use her battling in the field with Bella. You could use her battling in the field with Chasey. You could use her garrison as a co-lead to garrison with Chasey. If you don't have any of those, you can still pair her with Cynthia and Mai for the additional skill rage generation and like skill damage rage generation and movement speed. Make her quicker. So there's tons of utility, which again is one of the reasons why I think she's ranked number 2 out of the 7 heroes. Okay, so who's next? We've got Sven. We've got 4 left, or what's he? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left to go through. Let's cut through these pretty quickly. We've got Sven next. And I'll be honest, I think Sven is highly underrated for what he does. Now, don't get it twisted. It's for what he does. Because most of his benefits come from him being a co-leader. See, here's the problem. He has the support talent tree and the rider squad talent tree and the siege talent tree. Support, in my opinion, in this meta, isn't great. Okay? It reduces the amount of damage that your troops do in the field by removing that skills talent tree. So unfortunately, Sven is almost always going to be a co-leader. No matter what he's doing, he's going to be co-leading. Okay? Can you? Yeah, you can put him as a leader if you want a little bit more of that support. But like I said, when you try to fight against those other ones that are pumping tons of skill damage, it doesn't equate. He can't race them as well as the others, right? But that doesn't mean he doesn't have his abilities, because he does. He does. He does a flat 12,000 damage to target squad and increases your travel speed by 50%. So good in the field if you're trying to chase somebody down, especially if you pair him with Bella, who has that travel speed decrease when she goes into battle. Right? So you can see how he has a really interesting place to play. And 12,000 flat damage to a direct squad is a good punch in the face. Okay, that's a good amount of damage. His gang fight passive skill, increasing rider squad attack by up to 20% and defense by 20%. So having that bonus on both is really good. It is really good balance because riders do need more defense, right? When leading only rider squad, damage taken is reduced by 15%. So again, if you have him co-leading with Bella and you're co-leading a rally of just rider troops, she's pumping out more damage because of her ability that triggers when leading only rider squad, and he's reducing the amount of damage as a flat amount. So they work really well together. And then lastly, Rampage of Doom reduces damage taken by 12% during siege. Basic attacks have a 20% chance to deal additional damage to garrison squads. So this is why he's going to probably be one of the better ones for you to use as co-leading into your siege lines. He's doing specific damage on those, specific additional damage and specific damage reduction when you're during a siege or two garrison squads. Which, if you think about it, you're still getting the three about even if you're using him in the field, right? As a co-lead to someone like Bella, he still has a decent amount of utility. He still has a decent amount of damage, squatting, travel speed increase, so you can either get away if you have to or go chase if you have to. He's got a good balance of damage and defense. He's got a great one here for damage reduction if you're leading only riders, which in the field, you'll typically be leading only riders. And then obviously he's got his siege ability as well. So lots of utility, makes sense to have him around. I think he's honestly underrated. I think he should be used a lot more than what he does. And then as this new one here, just making you tankier in the field, which again, riders need. They do a good amount of damage, but they still take a decent amount of damage. Sven will really help you support that in adding more sustainability in the field or during your sieges or what have you. Okay. So Sven, I personally ranked him number 3 on our list of 7. Simply because when you look at the rest of the choices, it starts to get a little creepy from here. Not creepy. I guess you could say it gets a little bit more twisted because the next choice we have from here is someone that it's a very special character. Like, she's got a very specific use, in the sense that, like, she's super like, I'll just get into it. So we've got, first is Bella, then we got Elena, then we got Sven. Next, we're going to go into one of the next ones, or the next ranked hero, which I'm going to call is Mai. Oh, pardon me. Mai. Now, why is she ranked where she is, and what is her deal? Well, the truth is she's a special hero. She was available during a King of Fighters collaboration. I'm not sure if she's going to be available anymore or how to get her or things like that. And unfortunately, upgrading her abilities takes twice as much to rank up. Okay? If you want to rank up these, for example, her skills take twice as much to rank up. See, I only need 5. It's going to tell me 2 to 1. So in order to rank her up to max level, it's going to take 1,380 frags to get her leveled up to max, compared to a normal hero that only takes 690. Sorry, 1,390. You see? So she is where she is because she's still really good. She still has like really good abilities. She also has a bonus ability here as well that no other hero has, where she deals damage, an increased damage to range squads of 5%, but takes more from infantry squads. So she's got this basically 6th skill that no other hero has, which is why she's really good. But again, she ranks lower because she's really expensive to increase. Okay? Now, She also comes with a field battle in Rider Squad, which is why she's going to do a lot of switching out co-lead where Cynthia would go. She's not necessarily going to lead big marches herself. She might lead smaller marches that you're out hunting hunters or fighting hunting farmers, pardon me, or where you want to just be really fast and like strategic in your hits. So you can hit and then run away and then hit and then run away and come back and hit and run away and that kind of stuff. That's where she's going to excel. Okay. And once we start to go over her abilities, you'll start to see why. For example, her first rage skill, Hakuro no Mai. Pardon me. 1,000 rage to deals scorch damage to up to 2 enemies in a fan-shaped area in front every second. And reduces their travel speed by 25%. So for 3 seconds, you're doing 4,500 damage to 2 targets. Okay? And there's no damage reduction for hitting the 2 targets. Which means if you think about it, this is 27,000 damage being done across 2 different targets. Okay? And makes them slower. So this is why she's going to be really good chasing down enemies in the field or keeping them from escaping. Next, we've got Cho Hisatsu Shinobi Bak. I'm not even going to pronounce these ones anymore, guys. Like, there's no way. I'm too Canadian. And my reading is not, well, reading of other languages in English isn't great. Either way, her next skill is a passive skill, increases Rider Squad HP by 20% at max level, and basic attack damage dealt to slowed targets by an additional 33%. And with her main ability, reducing travel speed and slowing, you can start to see how that basic attack damage is going to stack. So you can also see how she's going to work really well with someone like Felix in the field, or Chasey in the field, who's already increasing that basic attack damage. Especially when they're already slowing targets. Okay. Next, we've got her next passive skill, increasing the Rider Squad attack by 30% and Rider travel speed by an additional 15%. So not only is she making the enemy slower and doing more damage to slowed enemies, she's also 15% faster. Okay. And that 30% is for a single stat is pretty okay. A lot of times you'll see it like 20-20, or like they'll have one ability that's only like a 40% or something like that. But to have a 30% and then 15 on her, it's a valuable skill, right? It's a pretty powerful skill. Next, we've got this one here is another passive skill, increasing Rider Squad attack by up to 20%. That's going to be a flat increase Rider Squad attack by 20%. As you see, there's a period. And then after leaving battle, increasing Rider Squad travel speed by an additional 30% for 5 seconds if the remaining squad size is above 50%. So this is why she's going to be very strategic. She does a lot of travel speed, right? So she boosts travel speed here. She boosts travel speed here. She decreases enemy travel speed here. So there's a lot of reasons why she's going to be very beneficial on marches that you want to be fast. So even co-leading her with Bella, for example, Bella and then having my co-lead makes them much quicker in the field, harder hitting. You can start to see how that is going to stack as well. So there's a reason why she is really good. But again, because her skills take twice as many hero frags to upgrade, she ends up sitting in the back burner unless you're wailing hard. At which point she's probably going to be, I would put her above Sven. If she didn't have that skill negativity, I would probably put her above Sven. But because she has that increased cost to level, that's why she gets ranked a little bit lower. But who can you lead with her in field battles? Again, Bella, because of Bella's increased movement speed. You could do it with Elena, again with Elena's movement speed. You could do her with Felix because of Felix's, again, increased movement speed and basic attack damage. So there's utility with what you can do with who you pair her with. But again, very specific. You're typically going to be using her in the field to hit and run, to do some damage and get away before the rest of the troops come, to hunt farmers, all that kind of stuff. Okay? Next, we've got Jonathan. Now, Jonathan, you don't really see in many places at all. Because in my opinion, he's very specific to his use. Now you'll see his talent tree is support and Rider Squad. So you're not going to be using him to lead squads, but as a co-leader to specific uses, he has a position. For example, his main focus really is either running co-lead in your garrison or running co-lead in a counter rally. Now, what's a counter rally? When your enemy rallies you, you start a rally on their rally to counter rally. I know it sounds like I said rally a lot, but it's very simple. That counter rally is going to do damage to the rally and hopefully defend the tower or fort or whatever that they're targeting with their current rally. Okay? But that's really where you're not going to really use him in the field very often. There's better choices than what he provides. So there's really he's really got a small window for what he does. Even though he does do it pretty okay. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of utility. It's very kind of specific. And you'll see as we go through his skills why that is. For example, his rage skill, 1,000, deals damage at 12,500 to the target. If the target is a rally squad, the target HP is reduced by 20% and counter damage is reduced by 15% for 2 seconds. So you can start to see this is why he either wants to be in the garrison, so being rallied, or counter rallying, right? But that's it. That's really what he's used for. It's not like you're going to use him in the field to just fight, because that wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense. Okay. Next, when you defeat squads, recover own HP by 3,400. This effect is triggered at most once every 30 seconds. It's not a 3,400. It's at max level 11,250. At once every 30 seconds, and then every 20 seconds inflict damage of 7,500 to a random target. Interesting. So again, this is more based on if he is garrisoned, right? So if he's garrisoned, or if he's in a rally, and that rally is being attacked, anytime those troops or those marches die, he's going to heal for a decent amount. So let's say you're in a watchtower, right? And you're being rallied and they're swarming the watchtower. Well, all of a sudden, you're going to beat 3 or 4 or 5 squads because the march or the rally or the tower, will do more damage to those individual marches, which allows this ability to trigger. Okay? And then dealing that extra damage to a random target is probably beneficial when you have 3, 4, or 5 different targets attacking at the same time. But that really only happens when you're garrisoned or in a rally, right? In typically a counter rally. Next, he's got Resource Adjustment, a passive skill increasing rider squad attack by 25%. And then when the remaining troops fall below 30%, squad increases its attack by an additional 20%. And that's overall squad. So this is going to be more for defense against when your rally, if you're in a counter rally and that rally's starting to do less, well, this is now going to trigger and benefit all of the troops that you're rallying with. This is why, as you see, as we're looking through all of his skills, it really plays to him being a very, very, very specific role, which is garrison or counter rally. And because he doesn't provide any real defense, you're not going to really put him in garrison very often, right? You're not going to put him in garrison very often. You're going to put him probably in your counter rally. I mean, yes, he's got he's got this one here, which gives his basic attacks a 20% chance to reduce skill damage received by 25%. But that's going to trigger once every 5 seconds, only lasts 2 seconds. Is it going to help? Probably, especially over time, but only if you're garrisoned when you're going to be triggering it more often. Basic attacks, it becomes a war of attrition type thing. Now, granted, if you're in Alliance territory, so if you are garrisoned, it will also cause additional damage to the enemy to a total of 2,600. Okay, 2,600 isn't much. But that's based on your basic attacks having that trigger once every 5 seconds. So what does he do best? Well, kind of sit there and get hit. He's not going to lead anywhere. He's going to be a co-lead in everything he does. Yes, he ends up dealing 13,750 damage to a target. If the target is a rally squad, it's reduced by 25%, and the counter damage is reduced by 20%. So he does allow for more damage being done. He does do an okay amount, but it's so specific to what his use is, hence why he gets ranked where he is, which is 5th on the list of riders, outside of Felix and Chasey, who have yet to add to the list. Okay, so we've got 2 left. These are the 2 sisters that we've been that we've been all grown to love as we've seen them pretty much since the beginning of the game. We've got the Calamity Sisters. Now, in regards to the Calamity Sisters, personally, I think Cynthia is better only because what Katherine does is done so much better by someone like Bella, right? So this is another one of those situations where if you have nobody else, Katherine is good. If you don't, it's not. So let's go over Cynthia first, and you can see why I think she's a little bit better. Now, again, she's got the field battle and the rider squad talent tree, which means she's not going to be leading very often. I've built this for as fast as I can get her, so that when she is leading, my entire goal leading with her is to be as fast as possible. Get in, hunt farmers, punch, run away, right? That's the basics of it. What is she good for? Field battle, probably the most often is where you'll find her. But that's really, it's kind of hit and miss. Like you'll find her more in the field, but again, she's ranked 6th because there's always going to be, there's always a better option than her. Especially for the other heroes that are out, especially now. But that, again, doesn't mean she doesn't have a position. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a use. You can still use her to much efficiency if you have nobody else in things like Bounty Hunter or Bounty Ground, in things like Water War where you want to be fast, in things like AR where you're hunting farmers, or IR when you're hunting farmers. Like, there's still a benefit to why she's here. The only difference is there are better options, especially if you have them. But let's go through her skills anyways, and then we can make an opinion from there. Now, she's an older hero, one that's available for free, one that was out kind of since the start of the game. So obviously her skills are a little bit muted in regards to everyone else's. Yes, she's got a rage skill that only requires 1,000, but it only deals 7,800 damage to a target squad, though it does reduce that squad's attack by 30% and travel speed by 30%, so it makes them slower, makes it easier for her to keep up with them in the field, which is where she does well. Her passive skill, Dodge and Strike, increases rider squad attack by up to 25% and travel speed by 12%. So again, when I mentioned that these are muted abilities, they really are. Because normally your squad rider attack, we went over, one was 30%, and the movement speed was 15%. And those bonuses, those basics, make those skills much more valuable. Her next passive skill, High Caliber. Squad basic attacks have a 20% chance to heal lightly wounded units in your squad. That goes up, or stays at 20% the entire time, but the heal factor goes up to 1,200. If Katherine is in the squad, healing will be increased by 15%. Now, does that mean that you have to run her with Katherine? No, but truth is, if you run Katherine and Cynthia together in places like Bounty Ground or Water War, you will be surprised at how efficient they are, because they still do a pretty good job. They won't keep up with Bella, but they'll do pretty well. And if you have good armaments, I mean, you can still fight and perform at a better level. Okay, so she still has her position. Then we've got Embers of Revenge, increasing rider squad HP by 15% and damage dealt to zombies by 30%. So she starts to fall off here when she starts to only do rider squad HP by a total of 15%. And then we're bonusing zombies, which doesn't really do much. Unless you're doing things like, hunting zombies. You're trying to get your zombie, what the heck are they called? You know what I mean, in the radar station. those hard zombies there, or if you're trying to do, you know, things like hive minds, or you're trying to, like, all that kind of stuff. It's beneficial, but for a wartime battle hero, you're not going to see much. However, when she gets awakened, she does get this new passive skill, which allows her to generate more rage after using a skill. So she uses a skill, generates more rage. Provides a decent amount of, I can't even talk right now. Provides a decent amount of movement speed, an okay amount of damage, a decent amount of rage regeneration when she's awakened. You can awaken her entirely for free. You don't have to pay for her. She's available in the police station. So there's reasons why you want to have her, especially if you do. And use her, you know, get her awakened, because she awakens pretty cheaply, and then use her. I still use her to co-lead my Bella line. I still use Bella Cynthia as one of my main lines, right? I could probably, mainly because my Mai's not good right now. And Cynthia, you know, has a better place in there. But again, you're not going to lead with her. She's going to be co-leading, and typically co-leading with someone like Bella or Elena or even Felix, right? You want to be able to trigger the rage, have more movement speed, and kind of go from there, have a little bit of extra damage. So she's, you know, good co-leading in those positions. But lastly, if we look at Katherine, the reason why she is the last on the list is because she is not good for the price you have to pay for her. The only way to upgrade Katherine entirely is to purchase her fragments in the VIP store. And if you look, for example, we're talking $100, we're talking $50. This one I think was $20, right? So like it adds up very quickly, where it's almost 200 American dollars just to awaken Katherine. And when you look at what she does and you look at her skills, because she's been around a long time, they're just muted in comparison to the other choices. Now, does that mean that you can't use her? Again, like I've said, and like I'll repeat, no, it doesn't mean you can't use her. If you don't have these other choices leveled up or skilled up or anything else, and you've spent the money on her already, then use her. Just understand that she won't survive against Bella. She won't survive against Elena. She'll struggle. That doesn't mean she's bad. It just means that if you have nobody better, she can fit in that position. Because she does have the skills and the Rider Squad talent trees, which means that she's going to generate rage with the skill tree, right? And she's going to put out damage with riders, and her damaging ability isn't poo-poo buckets. It's okay. Okay? It's not great because she's older, but it's okay. Deals direct damage to target, 7,700. The next attack has a 50% chance to deal a bonus 4,700 flat damage. So if you think about it, you're looking at 1,250 damage flat, as long as you get the coin toss, which isn't bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Okay. Our first passive skill, Doom Girl, increases Rider Squad attack by up to 25%. When Cynthia is in the squad, increase Rider Squad attack by an additional 12%. So if you run them together, you get 37% squad attack. Not bad. It's pretty good. It's on par with that 40 to 45% that we've seen previously. It's less than the 48% we've seen on some of the brand new heroes, but of course, she's been around a long time. She's been in this war a long time. Needless to say, her skills are a little run down. Next, we've got Crazy Obsession, increasing Rider Squad travel speed by 15% and increasing damage done to zombies by 40%. So she's going to make you faster. Pair her with Cynthia, making it faster. You can see why there's still benefit to use her in Bounty Hunter or Bounty Ground or Water War, for example. Right? There's still benefits to using her there. Her last passive skill, Pink Lightning. Squad's basic attacks have a 10% chance to recover 140 rage. So she's got great rage recovery, which means she's going to pump out skills more often, which means she does more damage. Right? Again, it's not that she's bad. It's just that there are better choices. Right? I look at it like apples and oranges. I like apples. I like oranges. Is one better than the other? Not really. It's just they do different things. They have different things. And then here we have basically the awakened ability takes away that coin toss. So it takes her ability from 7,700 and maybe an extra to a guaranteed 12,400. But as you can see, her skills are muted. They're not nearly as impactful as the newer hero skills, which is why she ranks so low. Okay. Now, where are you going to use her? Offense, right? Anywhere in the field, she'll do really well. Pair her with Cynthia. You could pair her with Bella. You could pair her with Elena. Heck, you could pair her with Mai if you wanted more movement speed. But remember, the only way to get her, and the reason why she's ranked so low, is that you have to spend something like $250 or $200 to get her awakened. So it's just expensive. And because Bella can be acquired for gems and awakened for gems by simply getting her fragments that way, and she does so much more, it's one of those things. Bella does more than Katherine does for cheaper. So I would always suggest going for Bella over Katherine. But that's it, guys. That takes us through part 3 of our Rider Heroes, Rider only legendary heroes of Doomsday Last Survivors. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything, I ask you to put them in the comment section. I love to respond. I love to help. And truth be told, if you know something that I don't, I love to learn. That's part of why I'm doing this. Now, for those who are interested, because I have had a couple of requests, our alliance, the GROP, is currently recruiting players who are interested in a more competitive alliance, a more competitive gameplay, but who might not necessarily be as strong as they want to be yet, but want a good place to grow. Well, our alliance is recruiting. We've got a decent amount of open positions. If you want to come grow with me, you want to come play with me, you're more than welcome to. We're in region 474. Just message me if you'd like. Get to know me. That's kind of why I'm here. And other than that, guys, stay lifted. Have a good day. I hope to see you in the next one, part 4. We're going to be talking about the leader heroes. So that's like Peter, Jaden, Lee, Victor, Bianca, Hank, Jin, and the overall heroes, Maxine, Sarah, and Martin. We're going to talk about them in the 4th one. And then our 5th part of this series is going to be where we mix and match pairings. We talk a little bit about, because we would have gone through all the heroes at that point. So we'll talk about who can match where to do what across multiple lines. For example, Thunder and Lewis. Really strong garrison line. Okay. So, that being said, guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Make sure to click the ding. Go ahead and hit something in the comments. Share this video to your friends. And other than that, stay lifted and have a great day.